The first time I went to Maui, I was a teenager, and everyone had told me the same thing before I went. Maui is built up. Maui is commercial. If you want the real Hawaii, go to Kauai. So I landed expecting resorts and traffic and not much else. And instead, I remember being kind of stunned by how green so much of the island was. There's this lushness to Maui that nobody has mentioned, valleys and waterfalls and these winding roads through jungle that felt nothing like what I'd picture. I've been back about a dozen times since then, and that contrast still gets me a little. How a place can have a reputation for being all resorts and traffic circles and still surprise you with how wild parts of it feel. Welcome back to Hawaii Travel Made Easy. I'm Marcie, and today I want to answer one of the questions I get asked more than almost anything else. How many days do you actually need on Maui? Before we get into my usual answer, let's talk about what's happening on Maui right now because it caught my attention. The state put out its May numbers recently, and Maui had a huge month. Visitor spending was up over 26% compared to last May, and the number of people visiting was up more than 18%, which was the biggest jump of any island. But the part that really stood out to me is that across Hawaii overall, the average length of stay actually went down from about 8.5 days to just under 7.5. So people are spending more money, but they're doing it in fewer days. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Maui has the highest average hotel rates of any island in Hawaii, and right now the average room is running close to $500 a night across the board. More at the resorts most of us actually want to stay at. Add a rental car, parking, and meals out, and the daily cost of just existing on Maui adds up fast. When that number climbs, 5 great days starts to feel a lot more doable than 10. It's not that people love Maui any less, it's that a shorter trip is starting to feel like the more realistic option for a lot of budgets. So here's where I land on the actual number. If Maui is the only place you're going, I still tell people to aim for 7 to 10 days if you can swing it. If you're island hopping, 5 to 7 days on Maui is a really solid amount of time. And if your budget or your calendar only allows for 4 or 5 days, that's still enough for a great trip. You just have to be a lot more intentional about what you're doing with them. Maui just has a lot of ground to cover, and I mean that literally, which is part of why I lean toward the longer end when I can. The road to Hana is a full day on its own, not something you tack onto a morning. Sunrise at Haleakala means you're up and driving by 3 in the morning. Then you've got Iao Valley, Upcountry, the beaches on the west side, a Molokini snorkeling trip if that's your thing, and each one really deserves its own day instead of getting crammed together. When you're only working with 3 or 4 days, you end up having to pick 1 or 2 of those and let the rest go. And on an island with this much packed into it, that's a real trade-off. Speaking of Iao Valley, that's actually where one of my favorite Maui memories comes from. I took my oldest there when he was a toddler, and the hike up to the lookout is easy, it's paved, it's short, but watching him do the whole thing on his own 2 feet was one of those moments that just sticks with you. It took forever compared to how fast I could have done it alone, but that's kind of the point when you're traveling with little ones. You're not trying to move fast, you're just watching them figure out something for the first time. The road to Hana gave me a similar kind of moment, actually, just a few years ago with my mom. I've done that drive more times than I can count, and she still managed to show me something new. She took me to Bretta Huts, this rib place along the way that I'd somehow never stopped at on any of my previous trips. Even after you've done that a bunch of times, there's always one more stop waiting for you. If you want the full rundown of how to plan that drive, I've got all of it back in episode 31, What You Need to Know About the Road to Hana on Maui. It's worth a listen if Hana's on your list. Okay, let's talk about something I see constantly with consultation clients because it ends up costing people some of their best days without them even realizing it. I get a lot of spreadsheets that are just packed with food stops, the specific banana bread stand someone saw on Instagram, the shave ice place that's supposedly the best, the boba shop that showed up on someone's TikTok. And when you look at where those places are on a map, half of them aren't anywhere near each other. What looked like a fun list on paper turns into hours of backtracking in the car. My advice here is to drop all those spots into a Google map along with the rest of your itinerary before you commit to anything. Once you see them next to your hotel and your other plans for the day, it becomes really obvious which ones are naturally on your way and which ones are going to eat up an entire afternoon after getting there and back. The other thing I run into a lot is road to Hana planning. Clients either think they can do the whole drive in half a day, or they show up with a list of 15 spots. Realistically, 5 or 6 stops is about right if you want to enjoy them instead of just hopping out, taking a photo, and getting back in the car. And then there's the clients who want to keep their trip loose and spontaneous, which I totally get, but they also want to do sunrise at Haleakala and see the black sand beach at Wainapanapa. Both of those need reservations booked in advance. They're not something you can decide the morning of. My clients aren't calling me from the airport in Hawaii, but I do get calls sometimes just a week before someone leaves. And by then, the window is tight. Some of what they want is already gone at that point, not because they waited too long, just because a week isn't much time for the popular stuff anymore. If you're earlier in your planning and want the bigger picture of how to put a Maui trip together from the ground up, that's episode 47, How to Plan a Trip to Maui. This episode is really more about narrowing things down once you've got the basics figured out so the two go well together. With that in mind, here's how I'd actually break down the days. With 4 or 5, I'd do the road to Hana as a full day, Haleakala sunrise or an upcountry day as another, a beach and pool day, and then either Iao Valley and some time in central Maui, or a Molokini snorkeling trip for your last day. With 7 to 10 days, you actually get to breathe a little. That extra time isn't really about adding more attractions. It's about getting to sleep in one morning instead of setting an alarm for 3 a.m. or 5 a.m. 2 days in a row. It's finding a coffee shop near where you're staying and going back to it more than once because you liked it the first time. Those small, unplanned things are usually what people remember just as much as Haleakala or Hana. If any of this sounds familiar, maybe you've got a spreadsheet full of food stops scattered across the island right now, that's exactly the kind of thing I help sort through in a consultation. We hop on a call and go through what actually matters to you and figure out what needs to get booked now versus what can wait. You can find those at hawaiitravelwithkids.com under Hawaii Travel Consultant. And if your Maui days are already planned and you just want someone to check it over, my $50 itinerary audit is perfect for that. I'll flag anything that's going to eat up more time than you expect, or any reservation you might be missing before it sells out. That's at hawaiitravelwithkids.com under Hawaii Itinerary Review. And anytime I mention a resource like that on the show, remember you can find my full list of trusted tools and recommendations at hawaiitravelwithkids.com under Hawaii Resources. That's it for today. However many days you end up with on Maui, I hope this gave you a clear sense of how to use them. Talk soon. Aloha.